Welcome to Tech's Leading Women, a video podcast series on lessons in gender, culture and being in an inclusive workplace. I'm Kashif Naqshbandi and I'll be moderating today's discussion. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of 10th Revolution Group, a global firm that specialises in plugging the cloud computing skills gap. This video series was inspired by the white paper we recently published, delving into some of the key issues facing women across the tech industry. Today's panel discussion is focusing on the concept of allyship. In an industry where around 80% of professionals are male, we shouldn't underestimate the importance of allyship for women in tech. In fact, most of the women we interviewed for our white paper agree that men had been the most influential figures in their own careers by recognising their abilities and championing them. As one interviewee said, you don't have to feel guilty about having your seat at the table, but you do have to think about what you're going to do with that privilege of having the seat. So what can men and women in these privileged positions do to become a true ally and help females stay and progress within our industry? Today I'm joined by three influential women from the world of tech who will be exploring this topic with me in greater detail and sharing their unique perspectives on allyship. So let's meet them. Sarah Liu is the founder and managing director of the Dream Collective. She's an international speaker, trainer and facilitator on next generation leadership, diversity and inclusion, and sits on the judging panel for Forbes Awards. Next, we have entrepreneur, portfolio non-exec director, author and philanthropist, and CEO of Global Transform, Dax Grant. Dax was listed in the Global CIO 100, which has helped FTSE 100 and Fortune 500 companies catalyse their performance and achieve purpose beyond profit. Annie Gardner, UK MD at global consulting firm Slalom, completes our lineup. Annie is a business leader with vast experience working in the information technology and services industry, and she's skilled in coaching, business transformation and governance. Thank you Sarah, Dax and Annie for joining me today. I can't wait to get our discussion on allyship underway and hear your thoughts. So let's get started straight away with our first question. What does it mean to be an ally and what makes a good ally? Dax, if you could share your thoughts please.
Yeah, sure. It's interesting. Allyship and being an ally is important in so many different ways, not only from a perspective of supporting women, but supporting each other in a diversity and equality and inclusion perspective. And allyship is really about looking out for others and supporting them and looking for opportunities where you can be proactive in helping them move to their ambitions, being aware of other people, their talents, and always scanning for opportunities where you can introduce, where you can elevate someone, give them their next chance, or help connect people really to create greater good. So allyship is a very selfless characteristic. It requires quite a lot of focus on, recognising talents, recognising opportunities and putting all those things together and being very honest, humble and respectful about all of that in terms of how all those things are connected.
Very good, very interesting perspective. Is that something that you've sort of seen in your own career?
Absolutely, I've seen it in pockets. I've seen it happen, supporting each other, introducing people into opportunities, but also this works really well in terms of growing potential, recognising people's strengths, and also create some of the world's strongest teams, whether they be a small team of 2 or 3 or organisationally in a function as well. So lots of different opportunities that I've seen around that. And that varies, as I say, some of that may be within organisation, but also in terms of the networking that we all do, there's lots of opportunities to create allyship in the marketplace and connect across organisations as well. So I've seen both of those. Have I seen enough of it? I would love to see more of it in the world.
Excellent. Annie, what are your thoughts on what makes a good ally?
Yeah, a number of things. And first and foremost, this is about being a good leader more broadly, but specifically around allyship, is around being authentic oneself and being vulnerable oneself. Because it's only by doing things like that that one can create an environment where other people are comfortable being authentic and comfortable being maybe honest and genuine about what they might need or what might they benefit from to enable them to be most successful. Another key thing, I think, in terms of being a good ally is really looking out for the opportunities to amplify others' voices. So being selfless, being humble, some things Dax was just mentioning, but being there in the background and being ready to make sure that other people can see all the brilliant things that all these individuals bring to bear that they may not obviously notice. And the third one I would say is speaking out on behalf of people and assuming good intent. So being a good ally has been able to be vocal and create opportunities for other people. And by assuming good intent of others, it's almost easier to do that.
Very good. Sarah, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think when we talk about allyship in the diversity, equity, and inclusion context, it's really important for us to differentiate being a sort of passive supporter versus active advocate, a vocal ally. And that's usually where I think people probably not a misunderstanding as such, but I think people need to take the concept of allyship so much further. I think a lot of times we do hear people say, oh, yeah, I support, diversity and, I support it, but how does that support look like and really vocal and how are you expressing it in a way that comes with accountability? So I would really take the allyship concept further. It's not about being a passive supporter. It's actually about being an active and vocal ally when you create opportunities and you actually become accountable for their progress. And I think that is when the allyship component and that role becomes really significant.
Excellent. I think you've all made some three really excellent points there, all three of you. I think the point about being very deliberate about it and being very proactive is super important. Like you say, if you're just passive around it, you're not going to move the dial. So I think it is about somebody being deliberate and looking out for those opportunities to bring people up as well. Great, thank you for that. Question number 2. What role does allyship play in creating attraction and retention strategies? Sarah, could you give me your opinion on that, please?
Yeah, sure. So we actually work at the Dreaming Collective. We actually work with a lot of technology companies. About 82% of our clients are technology companies who are looking to attract diverse talent, retain them, and advance them. And a lot of times they come to us and their problem statement is that we're really struggling to retain talent. So can you please help us attract them? And what we realized after a bit of a discovery process is that they are actually getting the women in, but they're not actually keeping them because the internal culture. So what happens is that you end up solving the wrong problem, and there's actually a lot of leakage at the later half of that talent acquisition cycle. And so that's a really interesting one because a lot of times companies think it's an attraction issue, but really if you were to look at the internal culture, are you building an inclusive culture? Are there managers being allies? Are they having the right type of conversations and creating opportunities in active coaching and sponsoring a high talent and high caliber diverse talent into the next stage of their career? That's when you actually see retention and true advancement. And that in itself will actually lead to better employer brand and actually increase talent acquisition as a result. So the whole ecosystem needs to be complete. And I think that's why change always needs to start from within. And it's by actually building a culture of allyship, it will actually help with your talent acquisition and talent attraction as well.
Makes sense, and obviously plays onto the first part about building that culture and actually being very deliberate and proactive in building that allyship across all the sort of diverse segments. Annie?
Yeah, so building on that, Sarah, I would say spotting talent early, being deliberate about it, helping address, having that kind of authentic and vulnerable conversation where people feel comfortable saying what it is that is needed to help keep them motivated, help keep them within the organisation, help them keep them growing and feeling fulfilled. finding really exciting roles, stretch roles, and encouraging people to actually apply for them, because they may not think they're good enough to apply themselves, but finding them and then supporting them as they start those roles. And then the other thing I'd say is thinking about things like stay interviews. We always do a leave interview, but we often don't do a stay interview. And wouldn't it be great to understand why people are saying, or why they might be thinking about not staying, and then be able to do something proactively to intervene at a moment where you can.
Interesting. Could you just give us an example of something, a positive sort of outcome from one of the stay interviews? That's a really interesting sort of perspective.
Yeah, it might be somebody who says, I'm coming back to work after my second maternity leave and I can't work out how to juggle these things together. And actually, I don't think it's worth it because the role I'm doing isn't really fulfilling me. And it might be a case of creating more flexible work options to help them get by, but it might be a case of having an even bigger stretch role that makes them more excited, more passionate about coming to work when they're leaving some loved ones behind. That's one example.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. And also, just in terms of what you said about the stretch role and actually encouraging them to apply and support, I think that's a really key point as well. So, thank you for that. And Dax, have you got anything to sort of add from your perspective and your experience?
Yes. Allyship and culture, positive culture, are very positively directly correlated. So, taking away the equality and diversity piece, or whether it's men, women, whether it's from a different minority group or whatever it may be, if we think about what's a positive, nurturing environment, if we're all supporting each other and looking out for each other, how fantastic is that? And wouldn't you want to stay in that sort of environment? Wouldn't you want to grow in that environment? It's just, the natural thing. We, as parents, that's what we encourage in schools. When we're selecting our schools, that's the environment we want to create. Bringing the whole person to the workplace. Just because you've got a few years on school doesn't mean you're any different from that child that wants to be looked after or supported in any environment. There's a child within each of us, and being able to nurture that child in a really positive way is just so empowering. But it does require a few things. It requires, as I say, being very, very selfless. It requires an abundance mindset. So to really be growing an allyship-based culture and environment, you have to recognise that whatever you're doing, everybody's going to win out, because there's more than enough to go around, there's more than enough work, there's more than enough positivity, and the more we grow it, the more fantastic our culture is for the company. So it's about recognising all those things, but also recognising that in any environment, there are some people that naturally think that way. There are some people that might be frightened by promoting others. So, you have to respect that and understand that and take everybody through that journey. But it's very, very powerful, and it's something that the top performing organisations are very, very good at. Is it consistent across the piece? I've not seen it consistent everywhere in any organisation. Nothing's perfect, but it really does make a huge difference to everybody in the firm and how people feel.
Excellent, thank you. Next question. How has the idea of allyship, particularly in the world of tech, changed in recent years, and how have movements such as He for She and Black Lives Matter impacted this shift? Dax, again, if you don't mind.
Yes, I guess what I see lots of initiatives, right? So, He for She, whatever group it is, we've almost recompartmentalised everything so that we've created this world where people do more of that because of those sorts of initiatives. But wouldn't it be great if people did that anyway, and that just sort of grew? So, it doesn't have to be for any one group. It really is recognizing each other, and it's about seeing each other, respecting each other, and as I say, in that sort of environment, the more everybody can see each other and see each other's potential and talents, the more everybody feels recognized. It's just a whole different way of working. And me personally, in the industry, across lots of different organizations, I've seen lots of positive shifts. Is it anywhere near the levels that I would love to see that? no, I think there's huge amounts of space to do more on that, and I do think some of the measures that we look at in the background reflect that in the industry. So lots of opportunity to do more, but it really does have to come from the heart rather than any sort of top-down initiative.
Excellent, thank you. Sarah, please.
Yeah, I think it might be relevant to actually share a research that we conducted at the end of last year amongst 2,000 men across the APAC region. And what we uncovered was that 52% of these white-collar men are now feeling reverse discrimination, quote unquote, and feeling that diversity and inclusion initiatives actually sometimes could put them in a disadvantaged position. And I thought that was really interesting that the research uncovered that. But at the same time, in the same research, when they were asked, okay, so that's your perception, but has your opportunity at the workplace actually changed over the past 2 years? 82% or 83% actually said no, it hasn't changed, or in fact, it has improved, indicating that perception versus reality is not the same. So on one hand, they're feeling that because there's an increased, I think, awareness, education, and scrutiny on particularly technology companies to build inclusive culture, to hire diverse talent, I would say the attitude sometimes, whilst we see a lot of good progress, we also see some people, particularly sort of men or the majority, are feeling reverse discriminated, rightly or wrongly. That's the perception that's actually currently being experiencing. But that's actually not the reality. So I thought that's probably an interesting piece for us to reflect on in terms of, we see a lot of these initiatives. We think we are moving towards the right trajectory, that's indicating progress. But sometimes we need to go one layer down and look at what are some of the, so besides this artificial harmony and artificial progress, are we actually making true change? Or people are just saying yes to these things because they feel that's the right thing to do and say. And I think it's really important for us to bring that extra layer of scrutiny to what we're seeing in the market.
Annie, what is your perspective? What have you seen over, in terms of the allyship in the tech world in the last few years? How it's changed?
Do I think things have changed enough and quickly enough? No, but I do feel that things like he for she and Black Lives Matters have made a difference in terms of a bit of a wake-up call to people that didn't necessarily think before that they were being asked, that they needed to be involved, or they were being asked to be involved. It almost gave some people permission to say, how can I help, or tell me more, or teach me about this? How can I be a better person to support you in whatever your situation might be? So do I think things have gone far enough? No, but I do think they have helped tackle certain sectors and certain groups.
Yeah, agreed. I think go ahead.
Oh, I was actually just going to say, I think that really resonated because in the research that we also uncovered that most men, when it comes to gender equality initiatives, they actually feel that they do have a role to play, but they don't know what role to play or how to be part of it. So I think these initiatives have been helpful, in creating a space for different people and everybody to participate. And I think allyship as a concept, as a framework, has enabled people in a more privileged position to then think about how they outwork their privilege by supporting and becoming vocal allies of others.
I think that's a great point there, Sarah. People want to do it, but they don't actually know how to. And what good looks like, good allyship looks like. Because if you don't see examples of it, or if you don't discuss it openly, I know that we certainly in our organisation have had a dramatic shift in that and been very clear about what we need to do about it, and set ourselves some quite bold targets to get people up into minorities into leadership positions, which actually leads me on to question 4, which is Interviewees in our white paper were unanimous in their view. Allyship is essential if you want to make real progress in creating a diverse workplace, but how can each of us approach it? So this is the sort of actionable insights from the experts, please. Dax again, please.
I mean, it's really important to role model. I know we talk about he for she, and we talk about one way of allyship, but the best way for allyship is to model it and role model it. And there isn't any sort of grand plans around allyship particularly, but it's about being aware. It's about being conscious and attuned to it. And if I spot an opportunity for anybody that I think might be helpful to them in the organisation or in terms of any development, I'm always looking from that coaching mindset. And a coaching mindset is around seeing the potential in everybody, wherever they're at. When you look at them, all you see is their potential and how to hone that potential. And then, because you're very aware, then being able to spot and be their sort of eyes and ears, and then suggest other things for them in a have you thought about, or this opportunity's come up, you might be great for that, things like that. And they're really, really simple actions. And as I say, I see a lot of these diversity inclusion initiatives. It's really important that everybody is an ally for everybody, and really that takes away all the imbalances in society. If we do that consistently enough, everybody will feel included and involved, and the segmentations then drop away. We've just got fantastic environments. We've got people that are motivated, positive, and only wanting the best for each other, which isn't that what life's all about?
Absolutely. I think that the point you made there about being aware, conscious and attuned to it is really key, for people that aren't conscious or attuned to it right now. So I think that's really helpful. Annie,
thanks.
please.
Just building on the role model point and the question around some people don't know where to start. I mean, ideally, if one can be the role model oneself, but if you don't feel that you can be, then find others that you think can be a suitable role model for the person that might need some allyship. Go talk to the people in your circle and the people in their circle, and find people and do some connection, but be proactive and deliberate about it by helping set someone out or help them progress along that journey. And then I'd say listen, and listen carefully to each person's individual situation and circumstance and what might make a difference to them, because what might make a difference to them is likely to not be the same thing as to someone else. And speak out. Assume good intent, but speak out. I mean, we all hear, whether it's unconscious bias, words that we think aren't appropriate, situations where someone should have been involved in a meeting that wasn't included or could have been included. Assume good intent and speak out and say, why don't you? How not? Why not? And just try and help create that positive, as Dax was saying, that positive kind of environment that people will want to bring others along with them. And don't give up. Finally, don't give up, right? Because we've all been doing this for such a long time. Let's just keep persevering and not giving up.
Absolutely. Sarah, you're nodding there in agreement.
Yes, I love that actually, because sometimes you do feel like giving up a little bit, don't you? Especially having worked in this space for so long. But I think when it comes to allyship and really practical 3-step, like we call it the AAAs, right? So I think the first step is acknowledgement of the importance of an ally. I think a lot of people think ally is sort of like a peripheral sideline role that you play. It absolutely is not. In fact, if you look at all the significant changes and progress that's driven in the world, it's actually by allies, So I think it's really important for us to understand, acknowledge every single one of us that we play a significant role. In fact, our research uncovered that men feels that they are only in terms of level of importance, they feel they probably will only make about 22% of difference if they get involved in diversity and inclusion, particularly gender equality initiatives. But in reality, what we see is that companies who engage men in gender equality and allyship activities, the activities were 86% more successful. So 22% versus 86%, like huge disparity in terms of understanding how important allies are. And then the second thing is about ask. So it's almost like it's exactly what Annie said about listening, but actually like make sure you ask. We hear a lot of allies coming to us and say, I want support, but I don't know how to. Just ask, right? So I think, take the active step to actually ask and listen with the intent to actually help, not with the intent to just sort of sit there and not do anything with that information. And then lastly, the third part is actually action and advocacy. So once you have acknowledged your importance, and actually accept the responsibility by actually asking people, hey, how can I be part of your solution? Actually put it into action and advocate for them. Put their name in the ring for promotional opportunities. Pass the mic on when you get asked for your opinion. They're really practical things that you can do, right? But I think, acknowledge, ask, and, advocacy through action are really important. Sort of it helps simplify what allyship can be and how to activate that. Excellent.
The 3 A's, I'll remember that.
Yes.
Just one question, actually. You mentioned the importance of the acknowledgement piece and the sort of perceived success rates were 22% versus 86%. What was the measure of that success?
So measure of success is level of impact and results achieved. So level of impact meaning how fast and how much did they actually deliver on their internal metrics, and also measure of progress. So out of 10 sort of initiatives or measure of success, which one did they actually achieve? So it measured both speed of change and also scale. So actually delivery of some of the targets and initiatives.
Great. And I'll go to Annie actually on this one. What in terms of the ask piece of the 3 A's, how often have you seen people stick their hands up and say, how can I help? And how do we sort of try and tease that out of everybody to make it,
Yeah, so as in most of my career, being one of the few women in one of the more senior situations, you often get quite a lot of asks. A lot of people will come and say, what can I do? How can I help? And, the first part always is be authentic yourself, be vulnerable yourself, and kind of go learn and immerse yourself in the people around you and what they're feeling and experiencing. And in the case of, gender, maybe go and talk to some of the more junior women around you. Maybe go talk to your daughters or your daughter's friends or your wife or your sister. Go and seek and find out some of the things that people are experiencing and kind of absorb and take it on board, and then come back and be vulnerable and share. Because what I found over my time, which is quite a long time, but it's more recently that people are comfortable sharing things that make them vulnerable, and talking about things maybe in their private life, their personal life, that make them up. So yeah, so I've seen it quite a lot, and my thing is go seek, find out, but be authentic and vulnerable.
Excellent, thank you. Dax, anything to add to the 3 A's or Annie's comments, please?
I love Annie's comments. I love the 3 A's. I'm going to keep that one. Anything to add? I'm not sure it's rocket science. Let's just all go and talk to each other and find out how everybody is, and simple ways to help each other. And sometimes people don't need lots of help. Sometimes they just want you to hear them and listen and create that supportive environment. But if you're in a team, a firm, an industry where everybody's doing that, the world is just such a lovely place. And the more we can spot that for each other, and the more we can spot when someone's down or when someone's rocketing, and we can help them, all of those things matter. And the other thing I would say is, in terms of allyship and thinking about that from a whole person perspective, is, let's be aware of each other as individuals and people, but, every person that we meet has a family and friend set in some shape or form. So whatever we do for that person, not only have we positively impacted that person, but they will take that back into their environment and they will spread that positivity into their own group. So those very, very small actions may seem insignificant. They're actually the most powerful things on the planet. So little things count.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay, question 5. Thinking about the connection between allyship and, for example, race, disabilities and neurodiversity, should we do more to embrace this, and how can we achieve this in practice? Feels like question 1 is, we already know the answer, right? And again, I think I'll go back to you, Dax, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
more about the achievement in practice, which we've sort of touched on all the other questions. Sorry, go ahead.
I would say more, yes, but it's not necessarily about more. It's about being present in the moment. If we're all present for each other, don't get me wrong, I'm the hugest technologist at heart as well, but technology is as good as our behaviours, is my belief. So today we're able to talk through technology, but equally being present for people around us, putting away the phone when we need to, all of those things really do make a difference. And that presence for each other means that we're capturing each other in the moment. We're taking a photograph in our minds of what we remember, and life is very different. And that in itself creates a environment and safety harness for each other, so everybody feels heard, everybody feels listened to, everybody feels that they've got people around they could turn to at any time and just go, I've got this thought, what do you think? Or I'm exploring this in terms of personal development, got any views on that? It is those really, really simple actions, and if you think about how many people are in this world and on this planet, if everybody took one of those actions every day for each other, wow.
Absolutely, thank you. I think you, again, really good point there, which was having somebody around to listen to. That's really resonated with me. So thank you, Sarah.
I think especially when it comes to neurodiversity, and disabilities, we really need to look at our system and the structure in which we've created. I think, we need to be very mindful of the biases that's actually being built into our system. So, for example, interviews, right? So our interview process for any company, and the fact that you need to do sort of, face-to-face interviews, actually makes it incredibly hard for people who are talented but maybe on the spectrum to actually engage and I suppose deliver a level of results that we comprehend as good and strong performance, right? So I think I would really challenge all of us to think about within the structure that we find ourselves in, where can we make a difference, and where can we change and evolve it to actually make it more inclusive? And once again, that's a role of an ally, right? Understanding there are limitations and biases in our system and actually take an active step to evolve that to become more inclusive.
Great. And just in terms of practical advice, you mentioned the spectrum. How would you sort of execute that?
Great question. So an example is Microsoft's their diverse hiring program. So they actually created a program where they wanted to open up to hire talent from the autism spectrum. And so what they did in that process is that instead of following the traditional sort of CV, phone interview, in-person interview, etc., the candidate can actually opt into interview through email. So they actually, instead of phones, right, instead of face-to-face, actually emails, or they provide them with whiteboard and they can be on their own. After they've solved the situational questions, they come back and actually talk it through with tools and whiteboard, rather than trying to articulate it verbally. So that's really practical 2 examples where, it's quite widely published around what that diverse hiring program looked like. And so I think, once again, looking at the system, the structures, the tools we offer to people, how is that inclusive? Are we making assumptions around what will work? And these 2 areas are straight away things that we can make adjustment to quite easily.
Thank you. Great example. Annie, what are your thoughts on how we can sort of put this into practice?
So I'm absolutely passionate about strengths and having a strengths-based mindset and culture. I'm actually, as a hobby, I'm a strengths-based coach. And I actually think that if we can get everybody as individuals to think about their own authenticity, their own unique strengths, and maximise those, and use those when working with others and working in teams. And if people were to talk about strengths, we automatically get to a conversation where we're thinking about people as individuals and their individual makeup. And it kind of takes us a little bit away from some of the labels that we might have. And I find that a great way to take the conversation to a different place.
If I could maybe build on that a little bit as well. I love your comments there, Annie, around the strengths. I'm a huge proponent of the Strengths Finder model, and it really does, also build on some of the things that you've said, Sarah, around, we place all these labels in terms of different groups for different reasons, and that's the way that society manages different mindsets. But actually, what we're really saying there is everybody thinks differently. Right, everybody thinks in a different way, and some of the thought processes that we see in some of the minority groups, and some of the thought processes that we label, are actually some of the most forward-thinking mindsets. It's just a society, we haven't recognised the ability to put that in its place and recognise different tool sets around that. That is definitely coming next, because learning from those different ways of being in the world and those thought processes are really, really powerful. And I do believe in society there will be a further shift in the next 5 to 10 years, I would say. But even in the next, few years, I would expect those shifts as that awareness in society shifts. And putting all these things together, I firmly believe it's about each of us being the best version of ourselves for each other, and enabling the best version of everybody else for everybody else. And if we can adopt that mindset day to day, wow, what we do for the planet, and we hear all these things about ESG and all the different things in terms of diversity and all those different societal causes. A mindset like that in society that spreads, that is going to be one of the most powerful things on the planet.
Excellent, thank you. Final question. Reflecting on everything we've discussed today, is allyship the key to retaining women in tech? Annie, please.
I might take that then. I think it's
okay,
definitely...
go for it, Sarah. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, what was that?
That's okay, nothing. Go ahead, please.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I think there might be a bit of lag. So I think it's definitely one of the most important thing to attract, retain, and advance women in technology. I think we cannot underestimate the role that Ally plays, especially when tech currently, broadly speaking, are still quite male-dominated. So the fact that the more allies that we have, the bigger change, a tectonic shift can happen. So I think building more allies, empowering more allies, but also equipping what allyship looks like and putting actual structure around it. So for example, as opposed to sort of mentoring programs, actually look at how you can introduce sponsorship programs. Because overall, women tend to be over-mentored and under-sponsored, so how do we actually give allies practical tools and structures to really advocate for gender equality, and also the different intersectionalities that comes within it as well, so different type of diversity. So my answer is absolutely. I think, allies will continue to play a significant role in championing more women in technology.
Thanks, Sarah. Annie, please.
Yeah, so I think it's a yes and. I think yes, allyship is very important. I think there's something we still need to tackle, which is a bit more systemic, which is around doing more in the schools, in the playgrounds, and in the families, because you still see, if we're talking gender and tech specifically,
Yep.
You still see a lot of people being put off, just, the a kind of like unconscious discouragement. I'm not sure that's a proper word, right? But, a lot of that happens very, very early on. So I think we need to do something with that. I also think we need to make sure we have some super exciting stretching roles with support, and deliberately encourage and support people to be successful in those roles. So I think it's an and.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. And Dax, please.
Echo all of those fantastic points, definitely. Allyship is a very important part of a positive culture. Who wouldn't want to be in a positive culture? I do believe one of the things, and I'm looking forward to these coming out actually now we talk about this, everybody will suddenly generate them, but I do believe that we should create more awards and recognition for super allies. So wouldn't it be great if we did more of that, and when somebody does a good job at that, actually that's what we recognise, and I do believe that, coupled with positive allyship anyway, will also shift the balance, because what it's doing by creating that, whether it be a global award or a local recognition, it's recognises positive behaviour. And going back to Annie's point, whatever age we're at, we're both, we could be a mother, sister, son, daughter, friend. We play all of these roles, but the more we positively reinforce positive behaviours, the more that culture shifts, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, love the idea of the awards, by the way. I think that's, really, really cool, and, we should definitely do that. Well, that brings it to the end of the conversation, which I personally have really enjoyed. There's some really, really great points, and I've learned quite a bit as well. Got me motivated. I can see Josh nodding there in the background as well. Just before we go, a quick wrap up. There's loads of things that people could do in their own organisation. Could you give me one or two of your sort of key points that are actionable for people watching this video cast, please? And Annie, please, again, could you?
Well, I was going to steal one of Sarah's and one of Dax's, if that's okay. Sarah, you said pass the mic. If you want a simple tagline to go back to your ask, someone asked me, I'm going to say pass the mic. And one of Dax's, which is, if everybody just started with one little action, positive action, wouldn't that make a big difference? I had goosebumps when you said that, Dax.
Excellent. Superb. Dax, please.
Oh, what else is there to say? I mean, it's the small things, as I say, spotting, being present in our environments and knowing each other, getting to know each other, and spotting the opportunity and the potential in the person, and saying, have you thought about, to somebody that maybe hasn't thought about going into the next opportunity or something like that, or volunteering for something, or getting involved. Have you thought about, wouldn't it be lovely if you joined this initiative? What do you think it would really add to your talents that you've got already, but you would contribute a lot to that group? Having those sorts of conversations, again, very simple. You don't have to have lots of them, but a few key pivotal ones like that will just catalyse the whole thing.
Absolutely, thank you. That sort of aligns with what Annie was saying about the stretch roles, and actually making sure you support people with it. Maybe a lot of those people would never have thought of even doing it, have the or the being brave enough to do it. So having that support as well is really important. Sarah, please, just to finish off.
Sure. My challenge for everyone is to actually have coffee with someone either weekly or monthly who's very, very different to you, and who you might even disagree with. I think when it comes to allyship, the first step is actually empathy and understanding. So if we were to ask ourselves, when was the last time we hung out with someone who was so different than us, right? I think it's actually, the answer is usually, oh, I can't remember, because we don't intentionally do so. And when we don't intentionally do that, organically, we have this, affinity bias that we just continue to hang out in the circle that's really, very much similar to us. So my challenge is to actually spend time with people who are very, very, very different to you, who might even disagree with you on some things, and actually learn to empathize, understand, and that's the first step to building effective allyship.
Sounds good. That's great, and I like the word intention as well. That's really important to be aware of the power of allyship, and make sure you're proactive about it. So thank you, everybody. It's been, as I say, a really, really great and insightful conversation, and I'm really looking forward to getting this video cast released in the next few weeks. Thanks again, and we look forward to catching up again soon. If you're watching this and have any further questions that you'd like to put to myself or the panel, please do reach out to us by visiting frankgroup.com/contact or through our Frank Recruitment Group's social media channels. We do encourage you to like and share this episode, and keep an eye out for the rest of the videos in the series, where we'll be delving into further topics around gender, culture, and building an inclusive workplace. Thank you again.